Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Now NHL, local experts weighing in on the biggest stories on the ice. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. We've got our Locked On NHL hosts here. They're ready to recap all of the playoff action from Wednesday. We are going to start out with the Edmonton Oilers, who poured it on against the Los Angeles Kings for last night's best performance.
Best performance.
Hold up.
The Oilers showing they aren't going to go away quietly against the Kings after losing game one at home. Edmonton scored 6 unanswered goals in a game 2 win to even things up. Locked On Oilers and Kings tell you how Edmonton got such a one-sided victory.
La 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 Bamba, yes, let's get a playoff La Bamba going, baby, as the Oilers make it a 1-1 series as they make it a 6-0 victory over the LA Kings. Massive goal for Leon Draisaitl in the second period to get the scoring going for the Oilers as he opened the floodgates with his second goal of the playoffs, already matching his total from last season's playoffs against the Winnipeg Jets in 4 games. Also, the Oilers are getting secondary scoring, which is massive. Ryan McLeod with a goal and an assist. Evan Bouchard with 2 assists. And Evander Kane with 2 goals in the third period. Plus, Jesse Puljujärvi, the Bison King, baby, getting off the schneid as he scores his first playoff goal for the Oilers this season. Massive win for the Oilers. Plus, quietly, Connor McDavid 2 assists for the Oilers in Game 2 as they fly down to Los Angeles for Game 3 as they meet up with Ben Stelter. And as Ben says, play La Bamba, baby, as he meets them down there. Game 3 will go at 8 o'clock on Friday night. And let's see how the Oilers and the Kings will respond to an absolute blowout in Game 2.
Well, you can't win them all. The Kings turned in a pretty terrible performance in Game 2 in Edmonton, handing a win to the Oilers on Wednesday night. After a scoreless first period, things basically fell apart in the second when the Oilers registered goals at even strength, shorthanded, and on the power play. In a game where nothing went right for the Kings, the total failure of special teams to do anything of consequence helped doom them in this game. They had 3 separate power play opportunities in the first and couldn't convert on any. If they had, maybe this game would have tilted a little bit different. Instead, the Kings head back to Los Angeles with the series tied at 1 apiece. This game, we hope they just learned their lessons and come back strong in Game 3. It's not all bad news out of the organization, though. The Ontario Reign won their first playoff game over the San Diego Gulls by a score of 7-4. To keep up with the Kings and the Reign in the playoffs, make sure you're listening to Locked On Los Angeles Kings on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Tampa Bay Lightning jumped out to a big lead and easily won after dropping Game 1 in Toronto. The 2-time reigning champs are one of the best after losses, and Locked On Lightning tells you just how Tampa looked so much better in Game 2.
Well, one had to figure after a disappointing 5-0 loss in Game 1 that the Tampa Bay Lightning were going to come back and answer. And after going 14-0 after losing a playoff game over the last 2 postseason appearances, the 2-time defending champs did not disappoint, coming out, taking a 5-1 commanding lead, ending things on a 5-3 win in Game 2 up in Toronto. Goals from Nikita Kucherov, Victor Hedman, Braden Point, Brandon Hagel, and a couple of other guys. What a fantastic performance. Andrei Vasilevsky stopping 31 of 34 shots, sending the series back even to Amalie Arena. The Lightning have proven that they are officially in playoff form, and we get to see the Stanley Cup champions finally school some of these Maple Leafs on how it's really done. Looking forward to Game 2, and go ahead and give us a follow at LO_Lightning on Twitter, as well as Locked_Lightning on Instagram, and we'll be back to preview some of the other games in the series going forward.
The Maple Leafs let the defending champs take the home ice, and now Toronto has to go to Tampa and try to avoid falling into a 3-1 hole. Locked On Leafs tries to avoid overreacting to Tampa pulling even.
The Maple Leafs lose 5-3 in Game 2 as Tampa evens the series at 1 game apiece. I'm Mike DiStefano from Locked On Leafs. Toronto falling 5-3 to Tampa Bay in Game 3. Victor Hedman scored with 1 second left in the first period to open the scoring. He was an absolute beast tonight. 4 points in total, leading the Bolts to victory. Kucherov had a goal and 2 helpers himself, and Andrei Vasilevsky turning aside 31 saves, pushing his unbeaten streak after a loss to 15-0. Toronto made it close late, though, with goals from Mitch Marner and Alex Kerfoot to cut the deficit to just 2 goals midway through the third, but that was as close as they would come as they're unable to complete the full comeback. They now head out to Tampa for Game 3 on Friday night at Amalie Arena. For a full breakdown and analysis from tonight's game, game number 2, go check out the Locked On Leafs podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, you can find it on YouTube through video form. I'm Mike DiStefano from Locked On Leafs.
The Wild came out strong with 3 goals in the first period after an embarrassing Game 1 at home, and Minnesota evened the series with the St. Louis Blues. Locked On Wild has the differences between a bad loss in the first game and a Game 2 win.
Dean Evason stuck by his team, and they rewarded him with a Game 2 win to tie the series at 1. Hey everybody, Seth Topol, host of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, recapping a 6-2 win for the Minnesota Wild over the St. Louis Blues in Game 2 to even the series at 1 game apiece. Now, let's take a little inventory here of what all needed to happen in Game 2 for the Wild. Hot start, check. The Wild got 3 goals in the first period and then scored almost immediately to begin the second period. Winning the special teams battle, check. The Wild get a couple of power play goals, and their penalty kill goes 4 for 5 on the night to hold the vaunted Blues power play in check in this game. The Wild also needed to get a better performance from their stars. Check and check. Kirill Kaprizov with the first hat trick in Minnesota Wild history. Kevin Fiala played well as well. The Grief line with a fantastic game. We thought Joel Eriksson Ek had a hat trick, but he'll have to just settle for the 2 goals, as one was called offsides. The Wild needed Marc-Andre Fleury to come up big in Game 2. Check there as well. So Wild checking a lot of boxes in this one to even the series up. We head now to St. Louis, where the Wild will try to steal one on the road after the Blues took Game 1. But great response by the Wild in Game 2. And they are definitely back in this series. We'll see what happens in Game 3. And for more on this game and more on the Minnesota Wild, make sure you're following Locked On Wild wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Carolina Hurricanes taking care of business on their home ice against the Boston Bruins. Locked On Hurricanes tells you how Carolina beat the Bees for the second time in a row to start off the playoffs.
Hey there, Caniacs. Jared Ellis here, host of Locked On Hurricanes, and tonight was Game 2 between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Boston Bruins, and this was an eventful game, to say the least. This game saw the Carolina Hurricanes win 5-2 and take a 2-0 series lead, but Antti Raanta got knocked out in this game. Pyotr Kochetkov, he came in and absolutely killed it. The kid was amazing, and he even stepped up to fight Brad Marsh, and Nino Niederreiter had an absolute night, and give that man a blank check when it comes to re-signing him. Sebastian Aho went off, and the Hurricanes played a complete team game. They didn't back down from the Bruins when the Bruins wanted to get physical. The Hurricanes stepped right up and said that you're not going to be pushing us around like you had in the past. And that's why they have a 2-0 series lead right now heading into Game 3 up in Boston. The Carolina Hurricanes are going to need to continue to build off of what they're doing right. They have Boston on the ropes. Let's keep it going, and let's go Canes.
The Bruins are hoping that coming back home to Boston will change their fortune against the Hurricanes after losing the first 2 games of the series in Carolina. Locked On Bruins host says there's still a lot to do better if Boston wants to win anywhere before they get sent home.
Well, it's not over, but it's certainly not looking good for the Boston Bruins after losing Game 2 to the Carolina Hurricanes. They now face a 2-0 series hole as they go back to Boston for Game 3. This is Ian McLaren of Locked On Boston Bruins, and the story in this one was a ton of penalties taken by the Boston Bruins, some undisciplined play that led to 5-on-3 opportunities for the Carolina Hurricanes. David Pastrnak took a penalty while the Bruins were on the power play and knocked Carolina goaltender Antti Ranta out of the game. The Bruins also lost Hampus Lindholm due to injury in this one. They certainly got the puck on net quite regularly, but were not able to cash in. And the Bruins, same old story, failure to score and failure to score on the power play. And here we go back to Boston, facing a 2-0 series hole. Game 3 will go on Friday night.
That's it for today on Locked On Now NHL. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. Make sure you check out Locked On NHL and your team's Locked On podcast during these playoff runs. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Now.